music?
Something classical.
Venus?
Venus, baby! Venus!
How's it going, guys and girls? So this is my Destiny review. Finally got around to it. I wanted to get it done out of the way before the Shadow of Mordor comes out, which comes out today. So let's get straight to it. So Destiny probably is one of the most highly anticipated games in 2014. It's been certainly one of the most widely advertised games. It's touted as being, you know, one of the first truly next-gen games to come out. Everybody went absolutely crazy over it. This game cost $500 million to actually make, and it's probably one of Bungie's biggest franchises other than Halo. Just in its first 5 days, this game sold an incredible 5.4 million copies in its first days. Just to give you a couple of crazy statistics, gamers have apparently spent over 100 million hours on the game in the first week, and they've completed 137 million activities. That's insane. So, is it really worth all the hype? Is Destiny actually any good, and does it actually live up to its name? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I want to start off. This is going to be a really simple, straightforward review. I'm going to talk about the good, I'm going to talk about the bad, and then I'm going to give my overall opinion on it. So let's start off positively. Let's start off first with the good. So what was good about Destiny? Well, the first thing that was great was the gameplay. The guns were fantastic. They handled brilliantly. The first-person shooter elements, it was very, very smooth. It was very, very good, and very accessible, and the first person shooting gameplay mechanics in Destiny are spot on and great. The sound effects for the guns were fantastic. All the guns are quite unique and individual. They all have character. In some ways it did remind me a lot of Borderlands 2 especially. The abilities of the three characters, you can play as three characters in this game: a Titan, a Hunter, and a Warlock. All three characters are very unique. They have unique melees, unique armor, unique special abilities. And the special abilities were fun and interesting. And I did like the fact that you had your sort of main sort of class abilities. So for example, I played as a hunter. My main class ability was the golden gun. But then once you got to level 15, you actually opened up a subclass of abilities called the blade dancer. That was a very, very different style of play as well. Really interesting way to expand your character. I really, really like that. I love the whole customization within the game. The customization in Destiny was fantastic. You could customize your armor. You could equip, you know, different helmets, different gauntlets, armor, legs, everything. Even your weapons were upgradable and customizable. So, you know, you would use that weapon, and that weapon could actually level up in different ways, which would change the focus of that gun and its power, and it was really great. Once you get to level 20, that's really when the whole customization really does play into the fact, and you are trying to get things like legendary and exotic gear, and it's just cool to equip these on your character, and your character does just look badass, and it's really cool to see all these different sort of character designs, especially when you're playing versus multiplayer. And that brings me to the multiplayer. The multiplayer in Destiny is fantastic. PvP in this game is probably the highlight of the entire game. It's so good. It's fun. It's a really, really enjoyable multiplayer. Now, I know a lot of people have been kind of bitching about the multiplayer, saying it's very, very, very unbalanced because of all the abilities and the powers that you can use. I'm not going to discount that. It is unbalanced, definitely. There are a lot of abilities and weapons in the multiplayer that are one-hit kills. The Warlock's ability, for example, is just OP. If you've got the Blade Dancer ability as a hunter, you can go in and you can literally take out an entire group with just one-hit KOs. The shotgun, point blank, is a one-hit KO. Sometimes the sniper rifle is a one-hit KO too. There are a lot of overpowered weapons and abilities, but that is something that I'm pretty sure Bungie are going to actually take and try to nerf and try to improve on. The actual gameplay itself, the PvP, it is fun. The jetpack, the ability to double jump, gives it a nice verticality. The actual layout of many of the maps are fun. The gameplay modes like Control, which is capture the base, Clash, which is your typical team deathmatch. There's another one where you actually have to, like, it's 3 versus 3, so you actually end up having to, like, try to revive your teammates, and it's a lot more gritty. It's just fun. The multiplayer in this game is just heaps of fun to play, and I think it's probably the best part of this game. The look of the game as well is beautiful. The look of the multiplayer levels is not amazing. They're alright, but the actual single player, the worlds that you can go on are just beautiful. The moon, for example, is amazing. You can look up, you can see the Milky Way, the space station. It's just absolutely gorgeous. You've got the Earth, you've got the moon, you've got Mars, and you've got Venus. All of them are very, very different and very, very unique. The level design is just fantastic, and it's so beautiful. The only thing I would say is I wanted to see more. It's actually only limited to the Milky Way. I would have liked to have seen more worlds, more universes, more aliens, but who knows, maybe that is to come. The best part for this, the most enjoyable way to play Destiny, I think, is to play with your friends. That's when you get the full experience with Destiny. Playing in a fire team is tons of fun, and it is the best way to play Destiny. It's exactly like playing Borderlands, for example. Borderlands was way more fun to play with your friends cooperatively than it ever was in a single player, and Destiny is exactly the same. So if you're going to play Destiny, I highly recommend that you convince your friends to buy it as well, and that you play the entire game in a team on a fire team, because it's the best way to play it. It's so much fun playing with your friends on a fire team. So those are the good things about Destiny. There's quite a bit that is good, but unfortunately there are a lot of bad elements to this game as well. So let's go straight into those. The bad. Well, the main beef I have with this game is there is no real storyline of which to speak of. The main storyline is quite weak. We start off the game and our ghost, voiced by Peter Dinklage, basically revives us from the dead. We've been dead and we've been brought back to fight the darkness. We're not entirely sure what the darkness is, but our basic purpose is to save the Traveler. Now the Traveler is this giant kind of orb that is, you know, hovering above the Earth or within the Earth's orbit. We don't know what the Traveler is. Is it an artificial AI? Is it an alien? Is it man-made? Is it from another world? How long has it been there? We don't know. We do not know. Even our own backstory, we know nothing about who we are. Where did we come from? How long ago did we die? Why are we being brought back? It's just, there's just so many gaps in this story. Now, as you play the game, you actually unlock what's called, I think it's Grimoire cards. Now, these basically, they're like a codex, but the really frustrating thing is you can't read them within game. If you want to read the lore of the universe that you're in, which is an incredibly interesting one, and it seems interesting, and I'm very intrigued by it, you actually have to go to Bungie's website to be able to read those. Now that's a fundamental flaw for any game, where you have to go out of the game to actually read more about the universe that you're in. I do not understand why they just didn't include some kind of codex where you could go to the Citadel, you know, so you're not facing bad guys, because you can't pause this game. That's another issue I have with it. But where you can go to the Citadel and then you can actually read all this information and take your time to learn about it. To have to go out of the game to get this information is a big flaw for me, and just a personal pet peeve. So there's a lack of storyline, there's a lack of cinematics or voice acting. The only major voice acting within this game is by Peter Dinklage himself. His delivery, even himself, isn't fantastic. It's not what we would expect from Peter Dinklage, who is a seasoned actor and a bloody good actor at that. If we take Game of Thrones to be an example of that, he's an amazing actor. So I don't know whether the script that he's given wasn't on par, wasn't very good, or whether he just wasn't as invested in this game or in the storyline, he wasn't inspired by it. I've no idea, but his delivery is not great. But anyway, so the actual story is quite weak. It feels like they've taken large chunks of the story out purposefully, and that these are possibly going to be future DLC. I mean, when you go to the speaker, he's like, I could tell you this, but I won't. I could tell you this, but I won't. Even when you go and see the Queen, you know, she's like, oh, I could tell you this, but why would I do that? So, you know, we'll have to see. And it just feels to me like it's setting up for paid DLC, and that we're actually going to have to pay for this story to fill these gaps. Now that is a huge problem for any game for me. When you buy that game, and I paid £50 for this game up front, when you buy that game for £50, it should be a completed, finished product, especially when it comes to the main story. So that's a huge issue for me. Even some of the fighting itself and some of the missions in the main story, they were a little bit repetitive in parts. There were a lot of times when the ghost, Peter Dinklage, would basically say, oh, I have to unlock this door, but it's going to take me a little bit of time. Why don't you protect me? And then literally you'd have to just fight off 3 waves of enemies before you could open that door. And that bloody gameplay mission mechanic happened so many times. It just felt very, very repetitive. Once you get to level 20, things were supposed to be very new and very different according to Bungie, but it really isn't. You're just doing these heroic missions and strikes and things that you go into, but they're just pretty much the same sort of locations, same kind of enemies, just slightly leveled up. You're doing the same kinds of things. Again, it's just repetitive. It's just dull, it's boring, it's lazy gameplay development, in my opinion. The actual enemies themselves, there are 3 factions, which are all very different and very interesting. There's the Fallen, the Vex, which is kind of a robotic sort of AI kind of faction, and the Cabal, which are sort of this militaristic alien race. They're very much inspired, I think, by the Romans, given all their names and everything, Colossus and that kind of thing. But you know, at no time do you sort of see this there's no main protagonist. There's just these waves of enemies, this sort of horde mentality where you're just fighting off hordes and hordes and hordes of repetitive monsters and bad guys. And there's just, because of that, in some ways there feels like a lack of challenge and a lack of sort of investment. I'm not as invested in taking out this fallen enemy as I would have been if there was a main bad guy or a main villain that was kind of controlling all of them, whether it's through some kind of like mental psychic link, who knows. But I would like to see whether that is the case, and that really was missing for me in the main story. Now, because of this whole horde mentality, if you try and play this game in a single player, you're almost punished for it. It's ridiculous in some ways, because sometimes I'd be playing it single player, I'd be going through the single player campaign, and I would be level 20 and I'd be taking on level 16, level 15 enemies, and they would be actually putting up a fight because there were so many of them. It was just so difficult not to be, you know, overrun by them. And in that way, the game really is not designed to be played as a single player, as a single person. It really is designed to be played with your friends in a team. So if you're a kind of a single player person, you might struggle with this game. You might not enjoy it as much. I found that when I played Destiny by myself, I just didn't enjoy it as much as I did when I played with my friends. And I just found myself becoming incredibly frustrated with these hordes of enemies that were lower level than me, but just seemed to be overrunning me. And there was nothing I could do about it other than run away, wait for my shield to recharge, and then keep trying to take him out. It just felt very repetitive. Another big thing that's punishing you playing the single player as well is the servers. There were a couple of times playing this game where there were some server errors. Now, I know in the middle of Destiny there has been PSN went down because it was hacked by the Lizard Squad. But if your game is going to be useless if the servers are disconnected, you've got to make sure that your servers are spot on good and that you're not going to have that issue, because there were a couple of times when I was playing the single player story and I lost server connection. I just lost connection and I had to go in and play that level again, and it was so annoying and frustrating to lose all that kind of XP and weapons and everything that I collected. It was very, very annoying. Another thing that I don't like within the game as well is that the random number generator that comes with gaining loot and gaining weapons. It's completely random. Now that can be quite frustrating, especially when you become a higher level, and especially when you're playing things like strike missions or PvP. You might get, for example, the highest score and play the best in your team, but somebody who played rubbish and died a lot, didn't play so well, might actually get a legendary or an exotic item simply because of the random number generator, and you might get nothing, or you might get something that's very low level that you don't need whatsoever. I don't like the whole random number generator system. So that was a major issue that I did have it with it, the random loot farming. I didn't like it whatsoever. So yeah, overall I would say Destiny is a good game. It's fun, don't get me wrong, it's a fun game. I really enjoyed playing it, especially PvP, and especially when I was playing in a fire team with my friends. But do I think it lives up to the hype? Does it live up to its name and all the hype that came with it? Hell no, it doesn't. This game, at best, is an average game. It's an average game. It has many flaws. With the main story campaign, the repetitive mission modes, the random number generator that just causes more aggro than it does solutions. So the basic gameplay is there. The basic gameplay is good. The weapons, the guns, the abilities, all that is good. But the heart of it is hollow. There's no story. There's no investment in the characters. My character, my girl, hardly said anything, and that bugged the hell out of me. I wanted to know who she was. I wanted to know what her motives were, how she felt about being revived after being dead for so many years. I wanted to know all that stuff, but that's me. I'm a story-based gamer. That's how I thrive. So that's what I want in any game, and I just didn't get it in Destiny. So I wouldn't say Destiny's not a bad game. I wouldn't say it's a bad game, but I certainly wouldn't say it's an amazing game. I would say it's just an average game. It's a fun, average game that's good to play with your friends. I would not recommend that you pay full price for it. Don't spend 50 quid, $60 on this game. I don't think it's worth it, especially if there's going to be paid DLC coming out in the next year. But it is worth it maybe at a sale price, £20 or £30. So overall, I would give Destiny a 5 out of 10. Now, don't shoot me, guys, but for me, it just didn't live up to the hype. I found myself more disappointed than excited for Destiny. I queued up to get this game at midnight, so I was expecting a lot from this game, and sadly, it just didn't deliver for me. So, what do you guys think of Destiny? Did you enjoy the game? Have you played it? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comment section below. Alright, guys and girls, have a great day. Take care, and happy gaming. Yeah.